Commander Lyra Vethan stood at the observation window of Threshold Station and watched the human ship approach. She had spent 30 years studying alien species, but humans were different. They were new to the galaxy, having discovered faster-than-light travel only a century ago. Most species took thousands of years to reach that point. Humans did it in less than 200 years after their first powered flight thought. It made no sense to her. How could such a young species advance so quickly? The Kelari Dominion had sent her to observe and assess humanity. Her people were ancient, with a civilization spanning over 50,000 years. They moved slowly and carefully in all things. Every decision went through councils and committees. Every action required years of planning. Humans, she had read in the reports, made decisions in days, sometimes hours. It seemed reckless to her. The human delegation ship docked with a soft thud that vibrated through the station's walls. Lyra straightened her uniform and prepared herself for the formal greeting ceremony. She expected the humans to be loud and clumsy, as the reports suggested they often were. She was not entirely wrong. The delegation consisted of 12 humans, led by an older woman named Admiral Patricia Cole. But it was the young man standing behind the Admiral who caught Lyra's attention. He was looking around the docking bay with wide eyes, taking in every detail with obvious wonder. While the other humans maintained formal expressions, this one smiled like a child, seeing something magical dot his name. She learned during introductions was Lieutenant Daniel Carter. He was a xenobiologist, assigned to study Kelari culture and biology during the diplomatic exchange. Commander Vethan, Admiral Cole said, pronouncing her name carefully. We are honored to be guests of the Kelari Dominion. The honor is ours, Lyra replied in the formal manner her people used. We hope this exchange will benefit both our species. The ceremony continued with speeches and ritual exchanges of gifts. Lyra found it tedious, as she always did. But she noticed that Daniel Carter seemed genuinely interested in everything. He examined the traditional Kelari ceremonial cloth with careful fingers and asked questions about the symbols woven into it. These patterns represent your family lineage? He asked her quietly while the admirals continued their formal discussions. Yes, Lyra said, surprised by his observation. Most outsiders do not recognize that. I did some reading on the flight over, Daniel admitted. Your culture is fascinating. The way your society is structured around maternal lines, the importance of fertility in your social hierarchy. I have so many questions. Lyra studied him more closely. He was average by human standards, she thought. Brown hair that fell slightly over his forehead. Brown eyes that seemed warm in a way she could not quite describe. He was shorter than some of the other human males, but he carried himself with an easy confidence that had nothing to do with physical size. You may ask your questions during the exchange program, she told him. I have been assigned as your liaison. His face lit up with that childlike smile again. Really? That's great. I mean, that's wonderful. Thank you. Over the following weeks, Lyra discovered that Daniel Carter asked more questions than anyone she had ever met. He wanted to know everything. How did Kelari cities function? What did they eat? How did they raise their young? What were their religious beliefs? Their art? Their music? At first, his endless curiosity exhausted her, but she slowly began to appreciate it. Most aliens approached the Kelari with caution, even fear. The Dominion was powerful and ancient, and other species treated them with careful respect that felt more like distance. Daniel treated her like a friend. Tell me about your family, he said one day as they walked through the station's botanical garden. The Kelari had filled it with plants from their homeworld, and Lyra often came here when she felt homesick. That is a personal question, she replied. Sorry, is that not allowed? I can stick to professional topics if you prefer. Lyra considered the question. Among her people, family matters were discussed only with close relations. But something about Daniel made her want to answer. "I have one sibling," she said. "A younger sister named Kira. My mother is still alive. My father passed when I was young." "I'm sorry about your father," Daniel said, and his voice carried genuine sympathy. "Do you see your mother and sister often?" "No. My work keeps me away from home." Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand that. I haven't seen my parents in 3 years. Space travel makes it hard to stay connected." They walked in silence for a moment. Lyra found that she did not mind the silence with him. It felt comfortable rather than awkward. "Your people have difficulty with reproduction," Daniel said suddenly. "I read about it in the cultural briefings." "Is that true?" Lyra stopped walking. This was an even more personal topic than family. Fertility was sacred among the Kelari. Their declining birth rates were a source of deep shame and fear for her species. "Yes," she admitted. "It is true. That sounds incredibly hard," Daniel said. He was looking at her with that warm expression again. "I'm sorry, your people have to deal with that." No one had ever said that to her before. Other species either ignored the topic or treated it as a scientific curiosity to be studied. Daniel simply expressed sympathy, as if the Kelari were people rather than subjects of research. "It has been this way for many generations," Lyra said quietly. "Our scientists do not know why. Some believe it is a natural decline in our species. Others think it may be environmental factors from our homeworld. Whatever the cause, conception has become very rare. A Kelari woman may try for decades before successfully bearing a child. My own mother tried for 40 years before she had me." Daniel's eyes widened. 40 years? Yes, and she was considered fortunate. Many never succeed at all. How do your people cope with that? I mean, psychologically? It was a question no one had ever asked her. Lyra thought about it carefully before answering. "We accept it as part of our existence. The Kelari have always valued patience and acceptance. We do not fight against the natural order of things." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that stayed with her for days afterward. "Maybe that's the difference between our species. Humans don't really accept things. If something is wrong, we try to fix it, even if it takes generations. Even if it seems impossible." He smiled at her then, and Lyra felt something shift inside her chest. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. She did not know it yet, but her life had just begun to change. 3 months passed on Threshold Station, and Lyra found herself looking forward to her time with Daniel in a way she had never experienced before. Among the Kelari, relationships were practical arrangements. Two people came together for reproduction or political alliance, not for enjoyment of each other's company. The concept of spending time with someone simply because you wanted to was strange to her. But she wanted to spend time with Daniel. He had a way of making ordinary moments feel special. When they ate meals together, he would describe the foods from his homeworld with such enthusiasm that she could almost taste them herself. He told her about Earth's oceans and mountains, about cities that never slept and forests that stretched for thousands of miles. "I want to show you Earth someday," he said one evening as they sat in the station's common area. "I think you would love the Pacific Ocean. The water is so blue it almost hurts to look at." "Your planet sounds beautiful," Lyra said. "It is, but it's also dangerous. We have earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, extreme temperatures. Honestly, it's kind of amazing we survived long enough to develop civilization." Lyra tilted her head, a gesture of curiosity among her people. "Your planet tried to kill you?" Daniel laughed. It was a warm sound that made her feel warm too. "Yeah, pretty much constantly. We call Earth a death world, at least compared to most species' home planets. The gravity is high, the climate is unstable, and we evolved alongside predators that could tear us apart. How did your species survive? Stubbornness, mostly. Daniel grinned at her. Humans don't like giving up. If something tries to kill us, we figure out how to kill it back. Or tame it. Or at least avoid it long enough to have kids. There was that word again. Kids. Children. Reproduction. It came up often in Daniel's conversation, Lyra noticed. Humans talked about family and children casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. To them, it was dot to the Kalari. It was a miracle. I brought you something, Daniel said, reaching into his bag. He pulled out a small container and opened it to reveal a brown substance inside. This is chocolate. It's probably the best thing humans ever invented. Lyra looked at it skeptically. What is it made from? The beans from a plant called cacao. Try it. She took a small piece and placed it in her mouth. The taste was unlike anything she had experienced before. Sweet and rich and complex. Her eyes widened, and Daniel laughed again. I knew you would like it. Everyone likes chocolate. This is remarkable, Lyra admitted. She took another piece. Your species has a strange obsession with pleasure. Life's short, Daniel said with a shrug. We figure we might as well enjoy it while we're here. Your lifespans are barely a century. How do you accomplish anything? Urgency, I guess. We don't have time to waste, so we just do things. We don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. We try, fail, learn, and try again. Lyra considered this. Her people lived for 3 centuries or more, yet their society moved slowly. Decisions took years. Projects took decades. Humans had achieved technological advancement in a fraction of the time it had taken the Kalari. Perhaps there was something to their approach. As the weeks continued, Lyra noticed changes in herself. She smiled more often, though smiling was not common among her people. She found herself thinking about Daniel when he was not around. She counted the hours until their next meeting. It confused her. These feelings had no place in Kalari society. They served no practical purpose. And yet she could not make them stop. One night, they stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Daniel was quiet for once, simply enjoying the view. Lyra stood close to him, closer than she would normally stand to anyone. Daniel, she said, I need to ask you something. Anything. What is this? What we have between us. Your species has a word for it. I have heard other humans use it. Daniel turned to look at her. His brown eyes reflected the starlight. What word? Love. She said it carefully, as if testing how it felt in her mouth. Is that what this is? Daniel was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand in his. His skin was warm, warmer than Kalari skin. She could feel his pulse through his fingers, fast and strong. I don't know, he admitted, but I think it might be. I think about you all the time, Lyra. When I'm with you, I feel happy. When I'm not with you, I want to be. Is that what you feel too? Yes, she whispered. I do not understand it. It is not logical. It serves no purpose. Love isn't supposed to be logical, Daniel said. It just is. He leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. It was a human gesture of affection, she knew. Kalari did not kiss. But when his mouth touched hers, she understood why humans did it. The feeling was electric, like a current running through her entire body. When they finally parted, Lyra made a decision. She did not consult a council or wait for approval. She simply acted in the human way. Come with me, she said. She led him to her quarters. What happened there was not planned or calculated. For the first time in her life, Lyra did something simply because she wanted to. She gave herself to Daniel not for reproduction or alliance, but for love. Afterward, as they lay together in her bed, Daniel traced patterns on her silver-blue skin with his fingertips. She watched him, memorizing every detail of his face. "I should tell you something," she said. "Before we did this, I underwent the hormonal treatments my species requires for reproduction. It is standard procedure for any physical relationship." Daniel propped himself up on his elbow. "Does that mean you could get pregnant?" "It is extremely unlikely. Kelari conception typically requires many years of attempts. My mother tried for 40 years, remember. This was only once." Daniel nodded slowly. "But there's a chance?" "A very small chance. So small, it is almost non-existent." He smiled and kissed her forehead. "I've learned never to bet against small chances. Life is full of surprises." Lyra smiled back at him, not believing for a moment that anything would come of their single night together. She had been raised to accept that conception was rare and difficult. She had no reason to expect otherwise. She was wrong. 6 weeks after her night with Daniel, Lyra woke up feeling strange. Her body ached in unfamiliar ways. She felt tired even though she had slept for many hours. When she tried to eat breakfast, her stomach rejected the food almost immediately. Among humans, she knew these symptoms would be obvious. But Kelari pregnancies were so rare that most women never learned to recognize the signs. Lyra assumed she had caught some minor illness, perhaps from exposure to human bacteria. She went to the medical bay, expecting to receive simple treatment and return to her duties. Dr. Senna Mothai, the station's Kelari physician, ran the standard diagnostic scans. As the results appeared on her screen, her 4 eyes blinked rapidly. This was a sign of extreme surprise among the Kelari. "That cannot be correct," Dr. Mothai muttered. She ran the scan again, then a 3rd time. Each scan produced the same result. "What is wrong?" Lyra asked. "Is it serious?" Dr. Mothai turned to face her. Her expression was something Lyra had never seen before on a Kelari face. It was shock mixed with wonder. "Commander Vethan," she said slowly, "you are pregnant." Lyra did not respond. She could not respond. The words made no sense to her. Pregnant? After one encounter? It was impossible. It was impossible. It defied everything she knew about Kelari reproduction. "That cannot be," she finally managed to say. "Run the scan again." "I have run it 3 times. The results are the same." Dr. Mothai pulled up the detailed analysis on her screen. "You are carrying an embryo. The genetic markers indicate it is a hybrid, half Kelari and half human. And Commander, there is something else." Lyra braced herself. She did not think she could handle more surprises. "What?" "The embryo is developing at an accelerated rate. A normal Kelari pregnancy takes nearly 3 years. Based on these readings, your pregnancy is progressing as if following a human gestational timeline. The child could be born in 7 to 8 months. Lyra sat down heavily on the medical bed. Her mind was racing, trying to process what she was hearing. Pregnant, hybrid child, accelerated development. Each fact seemed more impossible than the last. How is this possible? She whispered. Dr. Mothai pulled up Daniel's biological profile on her screen. The data from his medical examinations filled page after page with information. "Human reproductive biology is unlike anything we have encountered," the doctor explained. "Their species evolved under harsh conditions where survival required rapid procreation. As a result, their genetic material is remarkably aggressive. It does not simply combine with other DNA. It actively seeks compatibility. It adapts." She pointed to a specific section of the data. Human males produce hundreds of millions of reproductive cells in a single instance, where Kelari biology creates perhaps a few dozen over months. Humans create millions in minutes. And those cells are tenacious. They survive in hostile environments. They find ways to succeed against overwhelming odds. Lyra thought about Daniel's words from months ago. Humans don't like giving up. If something tries to kill us, we figure out how to kill it back. Even their biology refused to accept failure. What should I do? Lyra asked. She had never felt so lost in her entire life. First, you should tell the father, Dr. Mathai said gently. Beyond that, I recommend rest and regular monitoring. This pregnancy is unprecedented. We will learn as we go. Lyra found Daniel in the xenobiology lab, where he spent most of his working hours. He was bent over a microscope, studying samples of Kalari plant life. When she entered, he looked up with his usual warm smile. "Hey," he said. "I missed you this morning. Everything okay?" Lyra closed the door behind her. Her hands were shaking. She had faced enemy ships and hostile negotiations without fear, but this conversation terrified her. "I need to tell you something," she said. Daniel set down his work and gave her his full attention. His expression shifted from happy to concerned as he noticed her trembling hands. "Lyra, what's wrong? Are you sick?" "No, I am not sick." She took a deep breath. "I am pregnant." Daniel stared at her. For a long moment, he did not move or speak. Then his face transformed. The concern melted away, replaced by something that Lyra could only describe as pure joy. His eyes went wide. His mouth fell open. Then he started to laugh. "What?" he said. "Really? Are you serious? But I thought it took years. You said your mother tried for 40 years. It does take years. It should take years. But the doctors say human biology is different. Your reproductive systems are aggressive and adaptive. They found a way." Daniel crossed the room in 3 quick steps and wrapped his arms around her. He lifted her off her feet and spun her around, still laughing. Then he put her down and immediately looked worried. Sorry. Is that okay? I shouldn't have done that. Are you okay? Is the baby okay? I can't believe I just picked up a pregnant person. That was stupid." Despite everything, Lyra smiled. His reaction was so human, so full of uncontrolled emotion. Among her people, such a display would be considered inappropriate. But from Daniel, it felt exactly right. "I'm fine," she assured him. "The baby is fine." "The baby," Daniel repeated, as if testing the word. "We're having a baby. Lyra, this is amazing. This is the most amazing thing that has ever happened to me. You are not concerned? This child will be a hybrid. Neither fully Kalari nor fully human. She will face challenges we cannot predict." "She?" Daniel's eyes went even wider. "It's a girl?" "The doctors say so, yes." Daniel placed his hand gently on Lyra's stomach. There was nothing to feel yet, but the gesture was tender in a way that made Lyra's heart ache. "I'm not concerned," he said softly. "I'm excited. This child is going to be incredible. She have the best of both of us. Your intelligence and grace. My stubbornness and chocolate addiction." Lyra laughed despite herself. "I hope she has more than stubbornness from you." "Hey, stubbornness got us here." Daniel grinned at her. Never underestimate the power of refusing to give up. He kissed her then, and for a moment, Lyra forgot about the impossibility of their situation. She forgot about the questions that would come and the challenges they would face. She simply let herself feel happy, but she knew this news would not stay quiet for long. The first human Kalari pregnancy in history was about to change everything. News of Lyra's pregnancy spread faster than light itself. Within 3 days of her medical scan, the information had reached the highest levels of the Kalari Dominion. Within a week, it seemed like every Kalari in the galaxy knew about the impossible conception. Lyra received messages from people she had never met. Some congratulated her. Others asked questions she could not answer. A few accused her of lying or exaggerating. The idea of conception on the first try was simply too incredible for many to accept. Then the high matriarchs got involved, the ruling council of the Kalari. Dominion consisted of 12 ancient women who had led their people for centuries. They rarely concerned themselves with individual matters. But this was not an individual matter. This was a potential solution to the greatest crisis their species had ever faced. Matriarch Vila Cathorn herself contacted Lyra directly. Her face appeared on Lyra's communication screen, aged and wise and utterly focused. "Commander Vethan," the matriarch said, "tell me everything." Lyra told her. She explained her relationship with Daniel, the single night they had spent together, and the shocking results of her medical examination. She left nothing out, though she felt exposed to sharing such personal details with the leader of her people. When she finished, the matriarch was quiet for a long time. Her ancient eyes seemed to look through the screen and into Lyra's soul. "This human," she said finally, "he must be studied." Lyra felt a flash of protective anger. "He is not a specimen. He is the father of my child. I understand your feelings, Commander, but you must understand mine. Our species is dying. For generations, we have watched our numbers decline. We have tried everything. Nothing has worked." The matriarch leaned forward. "And now, a single human male has accomplished what our best scientists could not. We need to understand how." Daniel agreed to the examinations without complaint. "If it helps your people, I'm happy to do it," he told Lyra. "Besides, I'm curious too. How did this happen?" The tests were extensive. Kalari doctors examined every aspect of Daniel's biology. They took samples of his blood, his tissue, his genetic material. They scanned his organs and studied his cellular structure. They compared his results to data from other human subjects. The findings were shared across the Dominion scientific community, and the conclusions changed everything the Kalari thought they knew about human biology. Their reproductive systems are not merely functional. Dr. Mathai explained during a briefing attended by scientists from across Kalari space. They are optimized for success against impossible odds. Human males produce an average of 200 million reproductive cells per instance. Each cell is designed to survive hostile environments and find its target. She pulled up comparative data on her screen. Kalari males produce perhaps 50 cells over the course of several weeks. Our cells are fragile and selective. They require perfect conditions to function. Human cells thrive in conditions that would destroy ours. A scientist from the audience raised her hand. "But how does this explain cross-species conception? Our genetic structures should not be compatible." "That is the remarkable part," Dr. Mathai said. "Human genetic material is not merely compatible with Kalari DNA. It is almost perfectly complementary. Where our reproductive systems are weak, theirs are strong. Where ours require ideal conditions, theirs adapt to whatever conditions exist." She looked at the gathered scientists with an expression of wonder. It is as if human biology was designed to find a way. No matter the obstacle, no matter the odds, their cells keep trying until they succeed. Daniel sat quietly during the briefing, looking slightly uncomfortable at being discussed like a laboratory subject. Lyra sat beside him, holding his hand. "Your species treats reproduction like a numbers game," one scientist said to Daniel directly. "You produce millions of cells hoping that one will succeed." "I guess so," Daniel replied. "We don't really think about it that way. It's just how our bodies work. And your bodies recover from injuries that would kill other species. Your immune systems adapt to new diseases within days. Your muscles grow stronger when stressed. Your bones heal denser after breaking." The scientist shook her head in amazement. "Your entire biology is designed around the concept of trying, failing, and trying again until success. Daniel shrugged. Life on Earth was hard. I guess we evolved to handle it. Hard? The scientist almost laughed. Lieutenant Carter, most intelligent species evolve on worlds with stable climates and few predators. Your planet has extreme temperature variations, frequent natural disasters, and you shared your ecosystem with creatures capable of killing you. The fact that humanity survived it all is remarkable. The fact that you thrived is nearly impossible. Lyra squeezed Daniel's hand. She was beginning to understand something important about humans. They were not special because they were stronger or smarter than other species. They were special because they had evolved to never stop trying. Failure was not an end for them. It was just another step toward eventual success. Their bodies reflected this philosophy in every cell, every system, every function. Human biology was the physical expression of stubborn hope, but the implications for the Kalari were enormous. If humans in Kalari could produce healthy hybrid children, and if conception could happen quickly rather than over decades, then the fertility crisis might finally have a solution. It would require careful planning and cultural adjustment, but for the first time in generations, the Kalari saw a path forward. Requests for diplomatic expansion with Earth began pouring into the Dominion's offices. Everyone wanted to talk about partnership agreements. Everyone wanted to discuss the future. Daniel watched all of this happening with a mixture of pride and discomfort. I didn't do anything special, he told Lyra one night. I just loved you. That's all. Lyra pressed her forehead against his, a Kalari gesture of deep affection. That is exactly what is special about your kind, she said. You do not see the extraordinary in yourselves. You just act. You just try. You just love. She placed his hand on her growing belly, where their daughter was developing faster than any Kalari child in history. This is what happens when humans just try, she whispered. Miracles. 7 months after conception, Lyra went into labor. It was the shortest Kalari pregnancy in recorded history. Normally, Kalari children develop slowly over nearly 3 years, emerging fully aware and capable of walking within days. No one knew what to expect from a hybrid birth. Daniel stayed by Lyra's side throughout the delivery. He held her hand and whispered encouragements in her ear. When the pain became intense, he did not look away or leave the room. He stayed present, steady, and strong. You can do this, he told her. You're the strongest person I know. I thought humans were the stubborn ones. Lyra gasped between contractions. You learned from the best. The birth itself was easier than Dr. Mothai had feared. The baby emerged healthy and crying, with lungs that worked perfectly and a heart that beat strong. When the doctor placed the child in Lyra's arms, time seemed to stop. She was beautiful. She had her mother's silver blue skin, but it was warmer in tone, touched with something that looked almost golden. Her eyes, when she opened them, were her father's brown, warm and curious and full of life. She had Kalari features softened by human genes, creating something entirely new. Daniel leaned over them both, tears streaming down his face. Among the Kalari, crying was rare and usually private. But Daniel did not hide his emotions. He let them flow freely, and Lyra found she did not mind. She's perfect, he whispered. Lyra, she's absolutely perfect. We need to give her a name, Lyra said. They had discussed this for months. Kalari names were long and formal, filled with family history and social meaning. Human names were simpler, often chosen because they sounded pleasant or carried personal significance. What about Kara? Daniel suggested. It means beloved in one of Earth's old languages. Lyra looked at their daughter. This impossible child, who represented the union of 2 species and 2 worlds. Beloved. Yes, that was right. Kara, she repeated. Karavethan Carter. The baby gurgled in response. as if approving of her own name. Word of the successful birth spread even faster than news of the pregnancy had. Within hours, messages of congratulation flooded in from across the Dominion. The High Matriarchs sent formal acknowledgement and blessings. Scientists requested permission to monitor the child's development. News networks wanted interviews, but in those first hours, Lara and Daniel ignored all of it. They stayed in their room, holding their daughter and marveling at her existence. They counted her fingers and toes. They watched her sleep. They took turns holding her, neither wanting to let go for long. "I never thought this would happen for me," Lyra admitted quietly. "I grew up accepting that I would probably never have children. It was simply the way things were for my people." "I never really thought about it," Daniel replied. "For humans, having kids is so common that we take it for granted. I didn't realize how lucky we are until I learned about your people." Kara stirred in Lyra's arms, her small hand grasping at the air. Daniel offered his finger, and she wrapped her tiny fingers around it with surprising strength. "She's strong," he observed. "She is both of us," Lyra said. Kalari endurance and human determination. In the weeks that followed, Kara proved to be a healthy and active infant. She developed faster than any pure Kalari child would, but slower than a human baby. She was something in between, a perfect blend of both species. The Kalari Dominion formally requested expanded diplomatic relations with Earth. Treaties were signed. Exchange programs were established. Human doctors began working alongside Kalari scientists to study the compatibility between their species. Not everyone was happy about this development. Some Kalari conservatives argued that their species should solve its problems without outside help. Some humans worried about the implications of interspecies relationships. But the majority on both sides saw what Lyra and Daniel saw: hope. 1 year after Kara's birth, Daniel and Lyra stood on the observation deck of Threshold Station. It was the same place where they had shared their first kiss, where their relationship had truly begun. Now, they watched as ships from a dozen different worlds docked at the expanding station. "Things are changing," Daniel said. "Because of us." "Because of her." Lyra nodded. She held Kara in her arms, now a toddler with her father's curious nature and her mother's calm patience. The child watched the ships with wide eyes, fascinated by everything she saw. "Do you think she'd be more Kalari or more human?" Lyra asked Dot. It was a question she had wondered about since learning of the pregnancy. Their daughter would live between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. It would not be easy. Daniel considered the question seriously. "I think she'd be something new. Something that's never existed before. Not Kalari. Not human. Something better than either of us." "You think she will be better?" "I think she'll have choices we never had. She'll be able to take the best parts of both our peoples and make something of her own." Daniel put his arm around Lyra and Kara, both, pulling them close. "That's what children are supposed to do, right? Be better than their parents?" Lyra leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his body against hers. In her arms, Kara made a happy sound and reached for the stars visible through the observation window. "What do you think she'll be when she grows up?" Daniel asked. "I do not know. An explorer, perhaps. A scientist. A bridge between our peoples. Maybe she'll be the first of many. The first generation of a new kind of person." Looking at her daughter, Lyra felt something she had rarely experienced in her long life: optimism. The Kalari were an ancient people who had learned to accept decline as inevitable. But humans had taught her something different. They had taught her that nothing was inevitable, that problems were not permanent, that even the most impossible situations could change if you refused to give up. She thought about all the Kalari women who had tried for decades to conceive. She thought about the grief and acceptance that had become part of her culture. And she thought about Daniel, who had walked into her life and changed everything simply by being himself. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the oldest or the wisest. But they carried something inside them that no other species possessed in quite the same way. They carried hope that refused to die. They carried determination that ignored impossible odds. They carried love that demanded expression regardless of whether it was practical or logical. "Thank you," Lyra said quietly. Daniel looked at her. "For what?" "For showing me that miracles are possible. For teaching me to try instead of accept. For loving me." Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "Thank you for letting me." Below them, ships continued to arrive at Threshold Station. The galaxy was changing. A new era was beginning. And at the center of it all was a single family, a Kalari woman, a human man, and their impossible daughter. They had started something that would outlive them both. They had proven that the universe was bigger than anyone imagined, that boundaries between species could be crossed, and that sometimes the greatest strength was not power or technology or wisdom. Sometimes it was simply the courage to try. Kara laughed and clapped her hands, delighted by something only she could see. Her parents held her close and watched the stars together, full of hope for everything yet to come.